I found my wife's secret affair with her boss, which led to a $250, $0 embezzlement scheme. Now we're fighting over the house, inheritance, and who gets what when the truth finally came out. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here telling a story about betrayal that's so messy it makes a soap opera look tame. But here I am, and honestly, I don't even know where to start because it all hit me so fast and everything's been a whirlwind since. The craziest part. I found out my wife Lisa was cheating on me with her boss Mark. Not just cheating, turns out she was involved in a $250, $0 embezzlement scheme with him. Yeah, I know, what the hell. It all started with little things that I brushed off at first, but they kept piling up until I couldn't ignore it anymore. We've been together for almost 10 years. I met Lisa in college, and we got married right after she finished her master's. She was always the ambitious type, climbing the corporate ladder, and I was proud of her. I thought we had a good life, a stable house, and a future, but somewhere along the way I started noticing her phone buzzing more often, her sneaking around her laptop late at night, and her getting defensive whenever I asked about her whereabouts. Small stuff, really, but enough to make me suspicious. Still, I trusted her, or I wanted to believe I did. Then, about a month ago, I was going through our joint bank account because I wanted to plan a surprise for her birthday. That's when I saw it. A series of transfers to an unfamiliar account, large sums of money, and some suspicious wire transfers to a company I'd never heard of. I called the bank, and they confirmed it was linked to a company called L&M Consulting, which I later found out was just a front for something way more illegal. That's when I started digging. I managed to get into her email account, which was surprisingly easy. She's not exactly the most careful person with her passwords. And there I found emails from Mark, her boss, full of flirtatious crap, plans to meet up, and even coded messages about the embezzlement scheme. They'd been exchanging secrets for months, probably longer. The worst part, she always told me she was working late or going to the gym after work, but I'd see her sneaking out in the middle of the night, or her phone would be hidden away when I was around. I confronted her one night after I found the emails. I was furious, trembling with rage and betrayal. I told her I knew about her affair with Mark, and her face just twisted into this bitchy smirk, like she thought she could lie her way out of it. She everything at first, claiming I was paranoid, that I was accusing her of something she didn't do. She told me I was overreacting, that Mark was just a friend, that I was jealous, insecure, all the typical bullshit. But I had the proof. I showed her the emails, the bank transfers, everything. Her face turned pale, but she kept lying, saying I was making it all up, that I was seeing things, that I was just paranoid because I didn't trust her anymore. That moment hit me like a punch in the gut. I felt a mix of rage, sadness, and disgust. How could she lie so easily? How could she betray me after all these years? I didn't sleep. That night, I kept replaying everything, trying to understand how it all fell apart so fast. And honestly, I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. Not just because of the affair, but because she was involved in something way bigger, something that could ruin us financially and legally. And I had no idea how deep it went or what she was capable of doing next. Since then, my world's been upside down. I've been trying to piece everything together, figure out what I should do, how to protect myself, and what's next for us. But one thing's clear, this isn't just a typical breakup or a simple affair. It's a full-on betrayal that's cost me more than I ever thought I'd lose: trust, money, peace of mind. And now, I'm just trying to figure out if I can even trust her anymore, or if I should just burn everything to the ground and start over. After I confronted Lisa that night, everything changed in an instant. Her face was a mix of defiance and panic, but mostly she just kept lying, trying to spin her way out of it, like she thought she could talk her way back into my good graces. She kept insisting Mark was just a colleague, that I was overreacting, that I was paranoid and jealous. It was so typical, so predictable, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I had the email trail, the bank transfers, the secret messages. Everything pointed to something way darker than just an affair. I remember standing there, staring at her, feeling this strange combination of fury and heartbreak. I never wanted to be that guy who doubted his wife, but how could I ignore what I'd seen? I trusted her with everything, our money, our future, and now I was starting to feel like I'd been living a lie all along. The betrayal ran so deep, it was hard to breathe. I was angry, yes, but also crushed. I kept thinking about all those nights I thought she was at work or the gym, and she was with Mark, probably planning her next move, maybe even scheming how to hide her tracks. In the days that followed, I started digging even deeper. I hired a private investigator to confirm what I already suspected, that her affair with Mark was just the tip of the iceberg. Turns out, Lisa wasn't just cheating. She was involved in some serious financial crimes. The embezzlement scheme wasn't just a one-time thing, it was ongoing, and she was right in the middle of it. Mark had been funneling money into her account, and she'd been helping him cover it up. I found out she'd been laundering money through some shell companies, falsifying documents and even forging signatures on official papers, all behind my back. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how much I'd been played. Lisa's bitchy attitude, her constant lies, everything made sense now. She'd always been manipulative, controlling, and she had a way of making me doubt myself. I started questioning how much I really knew her. Was she even the woman I married, or just a con artist hiding behind a pretty face? The worst part is, she kept denying everything, even when I threw her the evidence. She would just brush it off, say I was crazy or paranoid. That's when I knew she was capable of lying her way out of anything. I felt this intense mix of rage and despair. I wanted to confront her again, to scream at her, but I also knew I had to be smart about it. I began planning my next moves carefully because I realized this wasn't just a personal betrayal. It was a legal and financial mess that could destroy us both if I didn't handle it right. I started gathering all the evidence, saving every email, every bank statement, every text. I wanted to be prepared for whatever came next because I knew Lisa wouldn't go down without a fight. Meanwhile, her attitude got bitchier by the day. She'd lash out, call me insecure, accuse me of not trusting her, and try to turn the tables. She'd say I was the one cheating on her with my suspicions. The more she lied, the more I saw through her. I realized that her arrogance was her way of trying to control the situation, to make me doubt myself, to make me feel like I was overreacting. But I was. I knew I had hard proof now, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. The thing that really hit me hard was how she kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me. Yeah, right. That was laughable at this point. Love doesn't involve betrayal on this scale. She was playing the victim, trying to act innocent, but I could see through her act. She was scared, and I think part of her knew she was caught, but instead of owning up, she doubled down on her lies. That's when I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had to make a choice, stay and fight for a marriage that was already rotten, or cut my losses and get out before it got even worse. Looking back, I don't know how I stayed sane through all this. The emotional shock, anger, sadness, betrayal was relentless. I felt like I was losing my mind, questioning everything I thought I knew about her, about us. But I also knew I couldn't let her keep pulling the strings. I had to take control and figure out what I wanted to do next. Part of me still hoped there was a way to fix this, but deep down I knew the truth. She wasn't the woman I thought she was, and I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies and deception. So that's where I'm at now, trying to process everything, planning my next steps, and trying to stay sane. The most shocking thing, I never thought I'd be the guy who'd get betrayed like this, especially not by someone I loved so much. But I guess the lesson here is that trust is fragile, and sometimes the people closest to you can turn out to be the biggest frauds. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I do know I'm done being naive. I've got a lot to sort out: money, legal stuff, and figuring out how to move forward without her. It's a mess, but I'm still standing. After I gathered all the evidence and saw how deep Lisa was involved in the scheme, I knew I had to act fast. The first thing I did was contact a lawyer. I needed to understand my legal position, especially since the criminal activity was tied directly to her and Mark. I wasn't just dealing with betrayal anymore. I was staring down the possibility of losing everything we had built, including the house, our savings, and any inheritance we might have expected. The lawyer told me to keep every shred of proof, avoid confronting her again without legal counsel, and start documenting everything meticulously. In the meantime, Lisa's attitude got even more bitchy. She started lashing out at me constantly, accusing me of being paranoid, insecure, and jealous. She'd yell, call me controlling, and try to make me feel like I was overreacting, that I was the one who was crazy for suspecting her. But I knew better now. I saw her lies, her manipulations, and her blatant attempts to cover her tracks. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was just jealous of Mark's success, that I was insecure because she was more successful than I was. Her words felt like knives. Every insult, every denial, every fake tear she threw in my face just made me angrier, more determined to get to the truth. One night I decided to set a trap. I planted a voice recorder in the house, just a small device I bought online, and left it running when I knew she would be home. I needed to catch her in the act, or at least get some undeniable proof of her lies. I felt like I was living in a crime thriller, but I couldn't trust her anymore. That evening I sat in another room, pretending to be busy, listening as she started talking on the phone. I heard her talking. To Mark, her voice flirtatious, her tone honeyed. She was planning some secret meeting, talking about how she'd handle everything, and how she was almost free from all this mess. Listening to that, I felt a boiling rage inside me. The woman I loved was just a con artist, a manipulative bitch who had been using me as a pawn. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I decided I'd confront her with the evidence, but I wanted to be prepared. I started drafting a plan, figuring out what I needed to do legally, financially, and emotionally. I also reached out to some close friends who knew about the situation. They encouraged me to stay calm, not to let her manipulate me further. The more I learned, the more I realized how much she'd been lying, cheating, and stealing from us. She'd been living a double life, and I was just the fool who didn't see it coming. Meanwhile, her bitchy attitude only intensified. She'd throw tantrums, scream at me, accuse me of spying on her, and say I was trying to control her. She'd even say I was the one cheating or that I was spying. Because I was insecure. Every time she did that, I felt a mix of disgust and sadness. How could someone I trusted so deeply become this lying, manipulative person? I started questioning everything. Did I even know her at all? Were there signs I missed? Was I just blind, or was she truly that good at hiding her true nature? I also started thinking about the money, what she was involved in, how much she'd stolen, and how it might affect our future. The embezzlement was huge, and if it came out, it could mean jail time for her and financial ruin for us. I didn't want that. I knew I had to protect what was mine, and I had to do it fast. I began talking to financial advisors and forensic accountants to see how much damage she'd done and what I could do to recover what I could. It was a nightmare. This whole situation was like a bad movie I couldn't wake up from. The most shocking part: every time I thought I was close to understanding everything, something else came up. Another secret, another lie, another betrayal. She kept telling me she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me, but her actions proved otherwise. I felt sick. I started losing sleep, constantly checking my phone, waiting for the next bombshell to drop. I knew this was going to get worse before it got better, and honestly, I was terrified of what I might find out next. But I also knew I couldn't keep living in the dark. I had to face the truth, no matter how ugly it was. Now I'm at a crossroads. Do I fight for the marriage, try to work through her lies, or do I cut my losses and walk away? The house, the savings, the inheritance, everything I thought was safe is now in jeopardy. I'm angry, hurt, and feeling more betrayed than I ever thought possible. But I also know that I have to take control and do what's right, both legally and for my own sanity. It's just hard to see the light at the end of this tunnel when everything feels so damn dark right now. The days that followed were a blur of legal consultations, frantic research, and endless nights lying awake trying to piece everything together. I knew I couldn't just confront Lisa again without having a solid plan, especially given how much she'd been lying and manipulating. The evidence I had was piling up: emails, bank statements, the recordings from the house. But I needed to be smart about my next moves. I started reaching out to a criminal attorney, someone who specialized in white-collar crime and financial fraud, because I realized her involvement went far beyond just cheating. This was serious, potentially criminal. I had to protect myself legally, and I had to figure out what was at stake. Lisa, meanwhile, was getting more bitchy, more aggressive. The accusations and insults came faster and more vicious. She'd scream at me, call me paranoid, accuse me of spying on her because I was insecure. She even tried to turn it around, saying I was the one cheating or hiding something. I couldn't believe how she'd become so cold and manipulative. It was like I was dealing with a completely different person, someone who was willing to lie, cheat, and steal just to keep her secrets safe. I started to understand that her loving act was just a way to keep me from digging deeper. One day, I decided to go through her phone when she was around. I know, sneaky, but I felt I had no choice anymore. I needed to see if she was still hiding anything. What I found was worse than I expected. More messages with Mark talking about their plans, even some coded language about cleaning up the mess. There were also texts from her trying to cover her tracks, deleting certain conversations, trying to make it look like she wasn't involved in anything shady. But I had backups of everything, and that sealed the deal for me. She was still lying to my face, still hiding the truth, even as I was gathering evidence to expose her. I kept thinking about how she'd always been bitchy, demanding, and manipulative. She'd lie to my face, then turn around and accuse me of controlling her or not trusting her. It was a sick game she played, and I'd been too blind to see it. All those years I thought I knew her, thought we had a real partnership. But now I saw her for what she really was, a dishonest, selfish woman who'd do whatever it took to cover her tracks, even if it meant destroying us in the process. The financial damage was starting to show. I discovered she drained our joint account of thousands of dollars, money she'd stolen from the company, laundered through fake accounts and hidden in offshore accounts. I was furious. How could she do this? How could she betray me, our marriage, and everything we built? I felt betrayed, humiliated, and helpless all at once. I was trying to be rational, but inside I was boiling with anger. I wanted to confront her again, but I knew I had to be cautious. If I did it wrong, she might destroy the evidence, or worse, try to turn it around on me. I also realized that her involvement in the embezzlement scheme meant she was risking jail time. That was a sobering thought. I didn't want her to go to prison, but I also couldn't just let her get away with it. I started talking to a forensic accountant to see if I could trace the stolen money, figure out how much she'd taken, and what could be recovered. The amount was staggering. Over $250, $0 gone, just like I suspected. It was clear she had been planning this for months, maybe longer, and I was just the fool who got played. Throughout all this, Lisa's attitude remained bitchy and dismissive. Every time I tried to talk to her about the evidence, she'd brush it off, call me paranoid, or accuse me of trying to ruin her. She'd scream, cry, and throw tantrums, trying to guilt-trip me into backing down. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I saw through her manipulations. I knew she was lying, hiding, and scheming. It was just a matter of time before everything came crashing down. I also started thinking about the house, our inheritance, and what I stood to lose if this all came out. I'd always believed that we'd grow old together, that I'd retire with her, that we'd build a life. Now I wasn't so sure. The more I uncovered, the more I realized that the foundation of our marriage was built on lies and deception. I felt betrayed not just emotionally but financially. I had to decide whether to fight for what's left or cut my losses and walk away. The thought of losing everything, our home, our savings, our future, was overwhelming. But I knew I couldn't stay passive anymore. If I didn't act, I risked losing it all anyway. Looking at everything I'd uncovered, I started to feel like I was in a war I couldn't win alone. I reached out to a few trusted friends, people I could confide in, to get advice. Some told me to fight, to take her to court, to expose her and Mark publicly. Others said I should cut my losses, protect what I could, and walk away before she destroyed me further. I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew I had a lot to consider. One thing was clear. This was no longer just about infidelity. It was about betrayal on a scale I never thought possible. and I wasn't going to let her get away with it without a fight. The legal advice I received was sobering. My lawyer told me that, given the evidence, I had a strong case for both criminal and civil action. The embezzlement scheme was serious. If proven, it could land Lisa in jail, and I could potentially recover some of the stolen money through civil proceedings. But the process wouldn't be quick or easy. It was going to be messy, expensive, and emotionally draining. I had to prepare myself for a fight, not just legally but financially and personally. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude grew even more hostile. The bitchiness turned into outright disdain. She'd lash out at me, call me insecure, possessive, and accuse me of trying to control her life. She'd scream that I was jealous of her success, that I was just a jealous loser who couldn't handle her ambition. Every argument turned into a battle of words, and every time I tried to reason, she'd throw a tantrum or pretend to be the victim. It was like she was trying to gaslight me, making me doubt my own instincts and memories. I could see that her manipulative streak was getting worse, and I knew I had to be careful not to fall into her trap again. One afternoon, I decided to confront her directly, armed with everything I'd collected. I wanted her to see that I wasn't backing down, that I was serious about exposing her lies and crimes. I sat her down in the living room, laid out the evidence, emails, bank statements, recordings, and watched her reaction. Her face twisted in that bitchy smirk again, like she was amused that I thought I could catch her. She started denying everything, saying I was paranoid, delusional, and that I was just trying to ruin her reputation. She claimed Mark was just a business associate, that she'd never do anything illegal, and that I was just jealous because she was more successful. I couldn't take her bullshit anymore. I told her that I knew about the scheme, about the money she'd stolen, and that I was going to take legal action. Her eyes widened for a second, then she started to panic. That's when she played her trump card. She started crying, acting like I was the one hurting her, like I was the villain in this story. She begged, pleaded, and even accused me of trying to control her life, saying I was paranoid and insecure. I felt a mix of disgust and sadness. How did I let it get this far? How could she turn everything around and make herself the victim? It was sickening. Over the next few days, things got even more intense. She doubled down on her bitchy attitude, trying to manipulate everyone around her, friends, family, even her. She'd call me a controlling asshole, a jealous loser, and say that I was trying to ruin her career and reputation just because I was insecure. But I knew better now. I'd seen her true colors. She was a liar, a manipulator, and a thief. And I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I also started to prepare for the worst. What if she tried to destroy the house, or hide more money, or even run? I had to protect our assets, so I contacted a forensic accountant to trace the money and see what could be recovered. The damage was worse than I thought. She'd stolen over $250, $0, and it was scattered across multiple accounts, some offshore. I realized she'd been planning this for months, maybe years. All those times she snapped at me about money, her bitchy attitude, her secretive phone calls, they all made sense now. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and exhausted. I kept questioning whether I had missed signs, whether I was just blind or naive. But deep down, I knew that I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had to decide whether to fight for the marriage or walk away. The house, the inheritance, our future, they all hung in the balance. I was terrified of losing everything, but I also knew I couldn't stay in this mess anymore. My mind was made up. I was going to do everything in my power to expose her, protect myself, and move on from this nightmare. I just didn't know what that looked like yet. All I knew was that I couldn't let her ruin me completely. The final blow came when I decided to go to the police with all the evidence I'd accumulated. I knew I couldn't just confront her and hope it all blew over. This was serious criminal activity, and it needed to be handled by professionals. I handed over everything, emails, bank statements, recordings, everything. The police took it seriously, and soon enough, Lisa was under investigation for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. Watching her face the reality of being caught, her bitchy smirk replaced with genuine panic, felt oddly satisfying, though it didn't fully erase the hurt I carried. The legal process was brutal. Lisa was arrested, and her reputation took a nosedive. I spent weeks in court, fighting for my rights, trying to protect what was left of our assets. I was awarded full custody of the house, and the court ordered her to pay back a significant portion of the stolen money. The inheritance we expected was now in jeopardy, but I fought to preserve what I could. It was a long, exhausting battle, filled with emotional highs and crushing lows. Every day I felt like I was walking through a minefield, unsure of what new betrayal or revelation might come next. Throughout it all, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. Relieved that I finally uncovered the truth, that I took action before she could do more damage. But also hollowed out knowing that the woman I loved, who once seemed so perfect, was capable of such deception. The betrayal cut deep, and it's left scars I don't think will ever fully heal. I lost trust not just in her, but in the idea that I knew who she was at all. And I lost a part of myself in the process, someone who believed in honesty, loyalty, and partnership. As for Lisa, she's facing the consequences of her actions. She's in rehab trying to deal with her own guilt, and I hear she's trying to rebuild her life, though it's clear she's not the same person. I don't have any resentment left, just a sense of relief that I finally got out of the toxic, manipulative mess she created. I've learned a lot from this experience. Trust is fragile, people can hide their true selves behind a mask, and sometimes you have to fight tooth and nail just to keep what's yours. Looking back, I wish I could say I'm better now, that I've moved on completely. But the truth is, I'm still healing. I've had to rebuild my confidence and trust in myself. I've learned to listen to my gut, to be more cautious with who I trust, and to never ignore the warning signs again. This whole ordeal has made me realize how quickly life can change, and how important it is to protect yourself, both emotionally and financially. If there's one thing I'd want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: be vigilant. Don't ignore the small signs of trouble. Trust is a precious thing, but it's also fragile. And if someone shows you their true colors, whether through lies, manipulation, or outright theft, don't hesitate to stand up and fight for yourself. Because at the end of the day, no amount of love or loyalty is worth sacrificing your peace of mind or your future. I lost a lot, but I also found a new strength I didn't know I had. And I hope, somehow, sharing this story will help someone else see the signs before it's too late.